All right. Yeah, so again, I've just said that our speaker is based in London. She's a travel writer, a community connector, and a storyteller. She focuses on untold stories of local communities, aiming to unveil sustainable and regenerative practices and discover ways to travel responsibly to make tourism an opportunity for transformational encounters. Right? So she's a recognized responsible tourism professional involved in local sustainable development projects through tourism since 2005. And so we are happy to welcome Dr. Elisa Spampinato to be our facilitator for today, talking about storytelling for sustainable tourism and community impact. So before you join in and start your presentation, Dr. Spampinato, allow me to introduce our team or my team here. I am with Judy, who will speak shortly after me. I am also with Dominic Wanjiru, who is our climate champion and programs coordinator here at STTA. I'm also with Rafael Omondi. And welcome all to our monthly webinar series. Judy.
Good morning from Nairobi. Welcome everyone to this monthly webinar series. I think this is our 6th webinar, if I'm not wrong. And it's interesting that today we're talking about storytelling. It's not my day, but I have had an amazing experience with the Maori people in New Zealand. Amazing hosts. People struggling and to sustain and preserve their cultures in the midst of an advanced country like New Zealand. Their stories are inspiring. I was inspired by every bit of them. And so as we talk about storytelling today, I come with additional questions that I would ask Dr. Elisa to highlight on. For African communities and many indigenous communities across the world, storytelling was part and parcel of our lives. Before we could write, we could tell stories. Before there was publishing, we told our stories. And so our cultures, our values, our identities were all stored in our stories. Sorry, I will just secure my working space. Thank you. All right, thank you. So I was saying that our values, our traditions, our cultures, our knowledge, our morals, everything that made sense to us was stored in our stories. And storytelling was a way for a transgeneration transfer of knowledge. There was therefore no gaps in knowledge because of storytelling. There were no vacuums in indigenous knowledge because of storytelling. And so storytelling is a big, strong component of our identities. They were told, if I am just to highlight that specifically, that storytelling was used to interpret the places. So you would find stories that will talk about forests, will talk about our rivers, they will talk about our mountains, they will talk about our warriors. They will talk, so it was about every generation having a consistent, right, interpretation of place. And that consistency was important, not just for preservation of our cultural identities, but also for preservation of our natural ecosystems. And that is how we managed to preserve our rivers. And long before we could get taps running in our houses, we were comfortable enough to fetch water from our rivers because our storytelling and our cultures had enabled us to interpret place and therefore understand our relationship with place, with one another, and also with the places where we lived. Storytelling enabled us to know how to do conflict management and resolve conflict, because stories were told of how there were conflicts between a community and another. And then there were systems of appeasement on how to make peace. So our storytelling promoted peace within the communities. Our storytelling was also used to encourage worship. Yes, in there many African communities, storytelling was used to idolize, whether it was a mountain or a lake, they were made sacred. And so they were told that people would have a spiritual connection with the places that they lived in. And that was the significance of storytelling. Now let us enter into the tourism space. And post-COVID, there's a lot of discussion. During COVID, there's almost a moment of awareness within the industry during the COVID period. And I thought it was a great awakening. I'm saying I thought because post-COVID, I'm now wondering whether that awakening was real. But during that moment of perceived awakening in the industry, there was a strong feeling around tourism and communities and what tourism has done for communities. You almost found the tourism industry almost came out to confess that we have not been fair in the way we have treated our communities. We have not told the stories of places in the right way. We have over-sanitized the tourism product. We have sold luxury at the expense of talking the reality of places. And luxury has sanitized what is supposed to be the reality of places. This was a confession by the industry. And the industry almost said, never again will we get to this point. We will recognize, we will appreciate places, we'll respect the natural environment, we'll respect the cultural environment. We will make sure that there are limits to consumption. We will make sure there was a lot of almost a rewriting during COVID. There was a rewriting of the tourism code of practice. In every webinar you attended, in every meeting you attended, there was every rewriting that we acknowledge that we have not done it right. And so emerged out of the COVID and post-COVID dialogue and discourse around tourism, emerged this whole space that is the storytelling space. And 3 years or so post-COVID, it has become stronger and stronger. And every tourism destination that is worth its salt is talking about storytelling. Every tourism business is talking about storytelling. It has become a career space, a new green. When you talk about green skills in the tourism industry, storytelling is one of them. Today, as we sit here, there is a course that is being put together. It's being offered now through Cornell University and its partnerships on storytelling. So we have all agreed, the industry is almost in agreement that, yeah, we need to talk differently about places. We need to tell stories. But having said that, let me go back to my opening remarks around storytelling and African communities and how they were important for their identities. Now, that significance was not left unchecked. Storytelling was not left unchecked. There were silent and unwritten codes of storytelling within our communities. These unwritten codes included who could tell the story, where would the story be told, how would the story be told, to whom would what story be told. These were the silent and written codes. And so you find interesting things like traditional storytelling had a common opening. In Kiswahili, for those of us who are from Kenya, you will know we have the famous Paukwa Pakawa. So a story will not be told without context. That was I need to alert you, it is time for storytelling. In my own community, there was a way in which a story will be started, and it will be started like the translation of Once Upon a Time, we will say Chon Gilala. So that is the beginning of a story. So the stories had written unwritten codes of how they would happen. It will not be an haphazard thing. So what does that tell us? It tells us that stories were strongly connected to cultures. And that brings the big question of who should tell our stories of place today? Who should be telling the stories of place? If you cannot say Chon Gilala, you cannot tell my story, because my story starts with Chon Gilala. So when you're telling my story, in what context are you telling my story? Who should be telling stories of place today? Yeah. How should those stories be told? Because we know that I said earlier on that our stories were not told for the sake of telling stories. We were either passing knowledge, we were either sharing morals, we were either interpreting place, we were either encouraging worship and spiritual connection with places. Today's storytelling, as I invite Dr. Lisa to take over from here, today's storytelling must connect with place. And therefore, without any prejudice, I think that the strongest people who should tell stories of places in tourism are the people of place, because they know how to say Paukwa Pakawa, or they know how to say Chon Gilala, which means they are carrying their stories and connecting them from the past. They are not telling disconnected stories of what they can see today. Today's storytelling in tourism, which is in marketing, they're telling stories of what they see today without a connection of the place with the past. What the meaning of Chon Gilala is, he says, once upon a time, which means I am connecting with my past. I'm telling the story today, but I'm connecting it with the past. Storytelling must therefore not be isolated to what we see today and where we are today, but has to be connected to the past of the place for it to make sense to the future of the place. Shall I repeat that? Storytelling of what we see today must be connected to the past of the place for it to make sense to the future of the place. And that's the connection with sustainability, the future. Without that connection to the past, we are simply doing marketing and not storytelling. Ladies and gentlemen, I now bring to you Dr. Elisa, who will take us through her presentation, and thereafter we will answer the questions that we had prepared in advance, which she's aware of, and any other questions that you have, please write them down in the chat, and I would like to have a lively chat. So I need you even to comment on what I have said from your own experiences. You agree or disagree. We want to make this as lively as we can this morning. Even in the midst of reject finance bill demonstrations, we're also going to reject fake storytelling today and rewrite the stories of place in tourism. Welcome, Dr. Elisa.
Such a great, fantastic presentation, introduction, Judy. Thank you very much for that, for your wisdom and knowledge and sharing these inspiring thoughts, because it actually is I couldn't have a better introduction of what actually I'm talking about, because you kind of laid the carpet, the red carpet for to discuss this. And well, yeah. You might know a bit of my background, so you know that community are the core of what I do. So we will talk a lot about things that you mentioned, and thanks again for bringing this. I wanted to invite everyone to leave your question in the chat. I collected the question that you sent through the registration, but I would like to. I will bring you here after to bring yourself this question, to ask yourself this question, and clarify that, you know, to the audience as well, so we can discuss openly. So I would like to start my presentation. First of all, I want to clarify, I'm not a doctor. Strictly, I don't have a PhD. I have 2 master's degree though, one in Brazil and one in Italy. If it's, I feel like the first time I've been called doctor, but not technically, but maybe by experience. In any case, I would like to, I'm not just about formality and labels. So, but thanks for the addressing it, and we'll share the screen and we start the presentation. And please confirm you can see it. Yep, thumbs up.
Yes,
Yeah, great.
we can see it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think people keep coming in. Great to join us, and I know that people will join also for the recording. So let's get started. First of all, welcome, and it's no coincidence. Actually, I bring a campfire here as introduction, and we'll talk more about later. So, Elisa, who it's me? Elisa is, as was introduced briefly, I'm a community connector and storyteller, and I've been working with indigenous community around the world, starting in Brazil in 2005, 2007, strictly with tourism. And I've been working, supporting that communication and marketing and storytelling as a consultant, as a copywriter, as a strategist, basically. I've been, also, I'm proud to say that I actually I am an ambassador for community-based tourism and sustainable development through tourism, and I organize and I've been invited often to talk about this, not necessarily only with relation to storytelling, but in general the import of a community and their role in the tourism. So these are some of the company I've been collaborating and still working with. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to briefly, this is our roadmap. We're going to talk about storytelling skills. We're going to talk about community storytelling, and we're going to see how we can implement a better communication of our sustainability journey. So what is storytelling? This is my definition, if you like, but a general way of describing storytelling is the art of telling stories, which creates engagement and emotional connection with the audience. Here are some building blocks, and I would like you to take notes of these because they're really important. We're going to focus on these along the way. First of all, remember there is a structure, and has to be a structure in the way you tell the stories. Purpose, audience, and these are really central elements. And later we're gonna come back to the neutral and the tool. So remember then, this is something obvious, right? But maybe it's good to remind that tourism is built on storytelling. So without storytelling, the industry wouldn't exist. So why should I travel and spend time, energy, and invest resources in visiting places if not because I heard a story about it? I have an image of a place, something is attached to that place that attract my attention. So purpose is the center. When we start telling a story, why we're telling a story is fundamental. So, and this comes also to several points that Judy was mentioning before. So telling a story has to have a purpose. So otherwise, why I'm doing it? So if you think about why and where we use storytelling, first, we use it in product development. Okay, we are creating a new product, we are creating and designing a new tour or a new experience, or upgrading what actually we have. So this is a way or a place, a context where we use storytelling. Another important and probably more renowned is the marketing, right? So we use storytelling in marketing in tourism. So we use it to sell our product, new product, to sell our product to new market. Also, we use it to customer retention. But it's not only that. We use marketing also to talk about our company, to talk about what we do, why we do it, what are we doing for the planet, for the people. So the sustainability journey is part of our storytelling. So we use storytelling to talk about our sustainability journey and our impact. So this is still considered marketing because you are promoting who you are and what you do, not directly selling product, but presenting yourself on the market and to your customers. So this is branding basically, but it's still marketing. Now, also important to think about when we talk about marketing, when are we are we sharing this message? So the storytelling, we need to ask ourselves when we are sharing the story. Is it before the tourists come here? It's like to promote and to share the image of the country on the place and invite them to come here? Is it during? Is it the story that we tell during the tour, during the community walk? Is this the moment we use in storytelling, or is after, to ask people about their favorite moments, their memories, their feedback? All these is still, to all these moments, we are applying storytelling, because there are stories that we talk, we say, and we share before, during, and after. Having being conscious of when and why we tell these stories is the key. So audience, this is the other fundamental building block. So without an audience, without having an audience in mind, our message won't go anywhere. We need to build our message on the audience we're talking to. This is the basic of communication. I don't write or tell, in general terms, a message to anyone. It is often a problem with marketing and in tourism, and not only. So we want to attract everyone. No, it is one specific audience you're talking to. So, and that story is specific to them. Now, I would like to see if you, okay, maybe you can do this in the chat. I would like you to put this concept in order. So what do you think is the first thing we do? What is the first most important things? So putting in the order 1, 2, 3, 4, what comes first? I'll give you a couple of minutes. I would love to see your answer in the chat, and please share that, and then we're gonna see, the order. Please share that quickly, like just with the number 1, 2, 3, 4, or just the order itself. So what do you think comes first when I'm creating a story? In my storytelling process, what is the first thing that I do? Let me see, the questions are coming. Okay, we got goal, audience, content, and message. Goal, audience, content, and message again. Audience, goal, message, and content. Keep bringing them, and thanks for sharing them. The majority is putting goal at the first. Some others are putting audience first. Okay, let's give it a few more seconds to other people to share. And this is not a test, it's just a reflection, and so we can start somewhere. Audience, content, goal, message. Okay, so let me share with you the order, the ideal order. So first is the goal. So of course, audience is important, but if I don't have a goal in mind, if I don't know why I'm telling the story, we don't even start a conversation, right? The story can't start. So first of all, I have to know why I'm doing this, right? Why I'm telling this story. What is my purpose? Second, what I'm going to talk about. What is the content? What actually I am communicating? Of course, the audience. The audience is important, but it doesn't come first. Comes just before the message. And when I say message is the way I shape my my content, if you like. So I have a purpose, I have something to say, I choose an audience, and I'm gonna shape that the message to that audience. And maybe this image clarify better what I mean. The goal is everything. So the content is what I'm saying, and the audience is who I'm saying and who to, and the message is how I'm saying. Because if I'm not talking in the way the audience understands me, because their level of knowledge, their level of expertise, their information, etc., even is stereotypes. If I don't reach the audience, if I don't know what they think, what they know, I cannot shape the message that reaches them. So this is fundamental. Now, neutral. I want to just leave this message. We're gonna come back to this later. Storytelling is not neutral, and I think was very clearly also shared by Judy here. Every story we tell is not neutral because it's told by someone in a specific content for a specific purpose. And then we're gonna, as I say, we're gonna get back to this, but remember, there is nothing neutral about storytelling. And this is a good news, actually, because it's something that we can craft and have control on. Now, coming back to these building blocks. Now, we should ask why storytelling is so important, and why we need good stories. It's a very simple question. This is the way the brain works, and it works like this because for 15,000 years, story and storytelling have dominated the way humans interact and communicate to each other. As also Judy mentioned before, and this is also true, more evident, if you like, in a certain part of the world, but still, for everyone, like as a human evolution, our brain, for the majority of this time, didn't have any writing. So the oral tradition was the center of the way you live in a society, you pass knowledge, and you live together. So this is also meaning the relationship that you have with what is around you, with the people around you, and how you relate to them. So everything was based on stories. So meaning that over time, and we talk about a long time here, over time, and now we have the scientific proofs. Kendall Haven is just one of the scientists that actually proved this connection about the fact that our brain looks in a certain way because evolution made it like this. So the way we receive information and we process information, that's the word, is through stories. Simple like that. That's why stories and storytelling is so important. I would like you to start asking some questions. So like talking about your storytelling and the stories that you tell. Is your story memorable? Is your story relevant? Is your story engaging? And does it inspire action? This is a starting point. If you answer no to any of these questions, that is where you should start. And we're going to start from this point. So it's really crucial that your story leave an imprint. If you make your story memorable, this is a good storytelling, because that is a story that the person will remember and will pass on. Is relevant, so is important to your audience. So are you telling something that is important only to you? That won't be remembered. That is not good storytelling, because the brain won't pick it. The brain won't memorize it. Is it boring? Is superficial? Is okay, I heard this, but doesn't really say anything to me. Is engaging. So engaging is a critical. We mentioned this before in the presentation. So if is engaging, so if you engage your audience, this is when you are telling a good story. The audience is there, wants to know more, wants to know more. You want to see where the story goes, right? Is with you, is hooked. In one word, is also inspiring action. This is an important aspect, because if a story leave you with wanting to do something, this is actually a good sign as well. Not for everyone, I would say not everyone consider this as important, but I think considering that you are in tourism, and not only the marketing, I'm talking about sustainable development and positive impact. You want your tourist or your guest, your traveler, to learn something and want to do something about it. So here are some elements of a good story. And I want you to take note of this, because we're gonna talk a lot about this, and they overlap all the things that we are about to see again. So a good story involves all the senses, not just the vision, but other senses. It makes you curious and wanting to know more, and that is also related to the engagement. It is a good story as action and as a change. When I talk initially about a structure, I don't know if some of you are familiar with the hero's journey. And the structure of a story. Stories are, we talk about story when we talk about a movie, a good fiction, romance, or the story as action and the story as a change. There is something happening. If nothing happened, especially at the beginning, there is no story. Story start because some changes happen in the world of the protagonist, where there is a disruption. Let's put it that way. So the emotions are another critical thing, because emotion allow you to reach the audience, bond with the audience, and stick to it. So your story should be able to raise strong emotions, and this is what is what not many stories do, but a good story do. So, and you have control of that. So let's think about the skills for a moment. So if you talk about the pillars, I will go through these one by one. We mentioned the senses. We didn't mention the uniqueness, but we say it now. So you should focus on what makes you different. And this also because it brings an element of curiosity, an element of change, if you like, attracts attention. So you have to focus on what makes you unique. So, and remember, the reality is something, right? So the reality is there, but if you don't tell a good story, that reality will stay invisible. So it's not just about creating a story, just inventing things. It's just highlighting the right things so that the story is more visible. The emotions and make it real is another element and is another pillar, because it's again the way the brain works. And we're going to see that with an image later. More real is more tangible element you bring to the table, better will stick to the brain, because this is how the brain works. It needs images, it needs anchor to the reality, because otherwise it's chaos, and the brain hates chaos, because it is there to analyze what is around us and make sense of it. Humor is also important. So it's important because it gives another element of connection. We see that. So using the senses, we have 5 senses, right? Some people say we have 6, even more. So, but we know that we use the visual. So when we write a story, when we present a new product, when we talk about what we do, when we talk about where we're doing it, don't focus only on what you see. So is it classical here when you talk about an experience? What are the senses are in that experience that we can use to present the experience itself? So the uniqueness I mentioned is definitely what what put you apart. And of course, if you are in tourism, have you done your work in preparing your business plan and your company? You know what is a USP. You know what actually makes you different from others. This is in general. If you talk about branding, you should talk about what makes you different. But of course, when you talk about an experience, what is different about that experience that the tourist will remember? And I'm bringing you an example here, knowing that we can use these pillars in all the different stories that we talked, right? So the emotions, stories are not emotionally neutral. Actually, is the opposite. We want to bring emotion. We want to create a reaction. We want to communicate certain mood. Depending on the purpose, are we talking about a new experience? How we want the person to live at the end of it. So the story that we tell should have a purpose in terms of the emotional upbringing, right? So we need to ask how we want people to feel at the end of the story. Why we want to make it real, as I mentioned before, the brain needs a reference. More is tangible, more we have an element that create connection over what we know or what we have in our mind, that is helping the brain to stick to that story and make it memorable. Make it real is also important because it gives space to the real protagonist. The humor is important only if you feel comfortable with it, but remember that when someone makes you laugh or smile, it's easier for you to remember what this story is about because it makes you feel good. So humor, or not as a funny story, but more like even irony is kind of a part of a humor in this sense. So it's something that you we're suggested to do to make sure that your story sticks better. So here there is the golden rule. Any guess about the golden rule? Anyone in the chat? I'd like to hear. People are do you know what is the golden rule? Can you guess it by the sign here? Anyone? There is something that you should do or something you don't do. This is part of the rule. Okay, I'll share the rule and I'll ask you to do an exercise after then. So the golden rule is simply a show, don't tell. So if we say, oh, this is a remote and special place, for example, talking about experience, okay, I'm presenting the place where the experience is going to happen, and you talk about, you're presenting in this way. This is kind of flat and boring and doesn't really say anything. Well, we just say that it's remote and it's special, but what actually that means, imagine that you are bringing a picture to that, to explain that. So you're not telling is special and remote, you are showing it. So in the same way as you will use a picture, when you tell a story, and I'm saying orally, but also writing, bring element of description into the picture, like you are painting a picture to the person. Why? Because the brain works in this way. Brain needs an image, and that again gives in the anchor. And this is again science. It's not something that I'm creating here. It's something in studying the science of storytelling and why, how the brain works. So an exercise for you. Can you please write in the chat? Choose one of these words. Can you define beautiful? Can you define relaxing or interesting? I'm curious to see your definition of these three words. Briefly, what is beautiful? What is relaxing? What is interesting? Anyone? Feel free to unmute yourself if you want, or share your thought in the, and again, this is not a test, this is like more an exercise that I will to inspire you to reflect about this word that we use a lot, hopefully. What actually means? How would you define it? Anyone?
I can share.
Please do.
So I'm Nada from Lebanon, and well, for me, to define these three words, it depends on the context. So if I want to put them in perspective of storytelling, which we're doing, for me, what's beautiful is what we see, but also what we hear about it, because sometimes we see something beautiful, but the story behind it makes it even more beautiful and gives it another meaning. So that's a sense I like to give. What is relaxing is when we feel in trust, in complete trust, and we let ourselves, guided, and and we follow without even thinking of anything, and just it gets us relaxed and everything. And what's interesting is, of course, to hear and listen and understand and hear new experiences and learn something new. So in my sense, those three words, like, of course, in the context of storytelling.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful. And I love this thought because bring us also another point that all these the words are words, right? So what is I never heard a so inspiring and quite, if you like, definition of relaxing. When you say in trust, guided, this is beautiful and this is unique in a way. So I heard people defining the word. So in this case, the exercise was actually more like a defining the word itself. But this is I'm glad that you brought this thought as well. When we talk about words, what word beautiful means, what the word relaxing means, and what word interesting means, of course, they all related to a context, but more than that, they all related to a different cultural context. Because I ask people that live in the mountain what beautiful is, and they say, it's the snow in the morning. Other people that know this is the sounds of and the look of the waves if they are close to the sea. So beautiful is also contextual, because also we know that definition of beauty change over time, and what is beauty beautiful today is even only you look at Western society, for example, and wasn't the same concept of beauty like 50 years ago. And this is because the word changes, because the culture changes, because the people put different meaning in different words. And this is really important to highlight. So one level here, there is the word that is related to the different context, right? Each context that give a different meaning to a specific word, which is related to culture, etc. And also is what this means within the tourism context, right? So I see, Judy, your hand is up. You feel free to unmute yourself and share your thoughts as well.
Sorry to interrupt your very beautiful presentation and enlightening presentation. When I saw these words up, it reminded me of what exactly you're saying, that context gives meaning to words, and that tourism has generalized these words, not knowing that they are very contextual. And I visited a community that lives by the forest and the river in New Zealand, and in the morning, the lake, it's a lake, the lake just in front of the community lodge, which for me was still beautiful and luxurious. We it wasn't your definition of luxury and lodge in Kenya as I know it today. Yeah. And in the morning, the lake was covered in mist and fog. And for that community, that fog meant something. They said that when they see the fog in the morning, they know that their ancestors have come to communicate, to tell them something. And so for them, it's a spiritual moment. That fog is a spiritual moment. For the tourism industry, they should send guests when there is no fog, when there are clear mornings, because the clear mornings with the sun is the beautiful morning for the tourism industry. But for the community, that fog is a spiritual moment, and therefore, and it's so beautiful for them when the lake is covered in fog. So I resonated with your words that, you know, all these words find meaning in context, and that tourism should not just, I've said it before and you're now emphasizing it, that these words can become meaningless, like you say, even to the brain, because the brain doesn't like confusion. Thank you for your inspiring words. Just a little words.
Oh, thank you, Judy, for sharing that beautiful image with us, because again, we need to, and then we're going to go back to the story of the place later on, and I can't wait to do that. But this is actually an introduction. We have to remember every word we use is a reference, is related to a context, right? And so for in this moment, what I wanted to highlight is that you should, rather than tell people this is beautiful, which is can be meaningless for something or different from my context, I want to communicate the beauty of it by painting it and by using a descriptive way of presenting that. So, and then this is an exercise that I will invite you all to do with the most common word that you use when you present your experience, for example, as a tourism provider, service provider. So think of what are the word that you use, you overuse. Are you using your contest? Are you using the only the tourist contest? Are you bringing your contest in it? So, and instead of just saying the word, describing it, that will be the first exercise. So there are other exercises that I would like you to do. Maybe we can come back to this later, but is another exercise which is related to using the senses as not only one. So if you think about a different experience like farm to plate or a pottery workshop or a traditional dance class, this is exercise I would like you to do maybe later, because I want to make sure that I cover all the presentation first. But keep this as your own exercise you can do on your own time. First, describe the kind of experience that you offer. How would you describe? And even you can even read what you share with your client, a future client. And then the second part of the exercise is use other senses to describe the same. So, for example, if you when you talk about farm to plate, are you actually talking about what you're gonna do and what they gonna see it? So, what is the sense? It's like, oh, I see this. I see all the beautiful veggie or the colorful. Am I actually using only the sight? And can I use other senses? Can I talk about the sounds, how they relate to a farm to plate experience, for example? Can I bring that? Can I bring, of course, the taste, as is kind of obvious, but what about the touch? Can I bring other senses? This is an exercise, like a brainstorming exercise for you to see, how can I bring other senses in the description? This is just as a pre-experience, right? Because it opens another universe when you think about how can I design an experience so that I can bring other senses in. But this is the other story of the product development. So, but still, storytelling is in both, and the senses are important in both. So just say a food for thoughts. And imagination. So this is actually related to the idea why we need to show things rather than say, because again, our brain works in a certain way. We want to create an image more detail, the more detail I can bring to someone's mind, the better, because that image will be clear. More details meaning more thickness of that image, because our imagination is, I used to say that, I say that actually, I usually say that this is our superpower. Without imagination, we are kind of dead. And imagination links to creativity, like, of course. If you look, children are plenty of imagination, and they're so active, and the world is endless, and they have a hope. The risk, if we lose our imagination, our power, our superpower, we are, going in a very dark place. So when we talk about what we do, how we do it, and what we present in tourism as a service and product, use the imagination to create a stronger and more detailed image in the mind of your reader and your audience in general, because this is how the brain absorbs information. Style. So of course I can write stories in different way depending on what I want to communicate or why I want to communicate it, who I'm talking to. I will use different kind of story. I'm talking to someone that is already very aware of what responsible tourism means, or what is sustainability. So with them, I'm going to talk in a different way. So if there are people that I want to engage in the conversation, I might use like a light and fun approach, or a short and sweet. So this also depends, all of this depends on what is your purpose, what is the goal, why you're writing the story, why you're telling the story, to who you're telling it mainly, right? So all these style option are kind of option that depends on your initial goal. So there are different kind of technique I would like to share here quickly. Few. One is wearing a new pair of glasses. When we look at our own reality, we should look at it as strangers, right? Why? Because usually we will discover new things. If we put ourselves in the shoes of our travelers and never been there, everything is new, right? And if we will discover new things if we put their own glasses on. But this doesn't mean that we actually want to please them. We actually want to communicate them the beauty of what we have in a way that they never seen it before. But for us, being our house, our place, sometimes we don't see it. So we need to shift our perspective and say, okay, I'm someone that has been here before, and this is also linked to the next. I come to the place where I am, where I live, or where I'm, taking my travelers, and what I can hear. I imagine that I've never been here before. What is new? And again, this is an exercise of the changing perspective. The zoom in technique is something that I love, and probably because I'm a photographer, I like to, and I love details. So I think you can use this technique in different ways. So you can use the zoom in technique when you want to talk about a product that you already offer, but you don't talk about everything. You talk about very tiny detail. You're going to talk about one special ingredient that is included in the meal that you offer to the tourists in the morning. They arrive there, or in the afternoon. So, but you zoom out from that detail, and then the story can start from there. So the zoom in technique can be applied in different places. Can be applied in the way you present an old product, and you want to attract attention. So about bringing curiosity, you can create even a whole series of posts on social media using the zoom in technique, sharing like a detail of the same recipe in different time, and then talking about each different ingredient which is specific to that region. And each time you make the person focus on a tiny detail, which might seem not important, but actually it is important because it's part of the environment, is linked to the biodiversity theme, is linked to the person that actually went there and collected the knowledge of finding a place. So the Zoom technique can be used in different way, and is a technique, as I mentioned it, that it can sparkle your creativity in terms of content creation as well. So this is an exercise as well that I would love to come back to when we, maybe later. If not, you use it as, if you're recording, you pause and you can do it now, or if you are listening live, you can do it later. But it's basically draft your next post. For example, is a post or, well, this is the thing. You say, okay, I want to write a post. Write that down. What is this for? So what I mean is, why you're writing it? What is about? Who is for? What is the language? And what is the channel? So basically, I'm asking you to be very conscious every time you write anything. Why are you writing? What's the goal? What do you want to achieve with that? What you're writing it about? Who is your audience? Can be your repeated customers. It can be a new market, a person that been there last week, or they're gonna be there next week. So is an email or is it just a post that you want to share the new experience that you're offering? The message is basically, how would you tell that to that specific audience? You're going to use specific words, you're going to use a specific reference, because that the audience knows specific things, wants specific things, needs specific things, and you need to mold that message on the audience. Remember, this is what you should always have in mind when you write a message. Tell a story. With telling is telling not only verbally, but also writing it, and also taking a picture. But the channel is also important. The medium is important. The medium, remember, as I just said, is not just the writing, is not just social media, is your blog, is the way you present the story in the moment that you are experiencing it, so the world, but it's also the picture that you share about the story. So, and here we come to the community storytelling aspect. So what is community storytelling? I call it, we call it travel storyteller. We call it the art of telling the story of the local community with them to share their narrative and their perspectives. Why this matters? I think this is obvious, but I want to reinforce it. Matters because communities matter, right? Matters because tourists want to know more about communities. They, thanks to that awakening that Judy was referring earlier, we realize that actually the world is bigger, and the cultures are many. Unfortunately, we lost many, and we lost many languages, but we still have a variety of culture and tradition that they make the place special. This is what actually make the place. It's not the flat image that we see on a newspaper, on travel magazines sometimes. Is actually the people living that, the culture that they represent. So people they realize this, and they're asking for more of this. They ask to, and these are actually just the last, I haven't put the last booking.com report, which is not very specific about this, but in general what tourists feel about sustainability. But in any case, they want to know, if people are involved, what is the story of the place, and what is the local culture. So, and the benefit is also very important to tourists. So we need to consider that. So storytelling is a noun, right? We've been talking about storytelling now, and I added an attribute, an adjective, right? In the same way, if you like, tourism on its own is not enough, because we're seeing that tourism on its own, it led to mass tourism, destruction, and extractive, because of its extractive nature. So we need to add some adjective to tourism: responsible, sustainable, regenerative. just to remind us actually that tourism has to have a positive impact. So it's the same way community storytelling is a reminder that storytelling is not neutral. And what I mean? I mean that we need to ask, and this is actually the story, my personal story of becoming a community storyteller. Well, started in 2016, 17. But when I started training the local community to become their own storytellers, I started with these questions because I realized, what stories do we tell in tourism? Who tells these stories? Who are the storytellers? And who do we tell the stories to? And I see that they're always the same answers. So the stories we tell are showing a flat image of a place, anonymous images, unreal isolation. And I noticed that the storytellers are usually not people from the place, which I think this is still not right. So, and who are telling the story to? These questions are important, and especially who are the storytellers? When we talk about community storytelling, we bring back the community at the center, and we say, okay, community, they have to be the storyteller. So if you work with local community, if you're not sure, I always ask this question to a big tour operator, and they say, no, we don't work with local community. And then they start saying, okay, well, look, I work with local farmers, and if you don't, you should, to bring your goods, and to make sure that your carbon footprint is equal or close to zero. The drivers, the cleaners, the artists, the artisans, the tour guides, these are and should be local people from a local community. Well, remember, there are people that talk about community-based tourism as well, I've seen the community washing, which is very dangerous. But we know that community-based tourism, when community they design, they deliver their own community experiences. They work with tour operator, with travel agency, they work with other providers, but they are in charge. And this is different from me as a private tour operator bringing people to the community. That is not community-based tourism. That is something else, but this is another chapter, if we like. So be careful about community washing. What you're saying in your communication, it should reflect the reality. Be honest and be transparent about what you say. Why we should care? We should care because inclusion matters, because inclusion means gender equality, diverse mobility and ability. Inclusion means neurodiversity, means also local communities. Local communities means indigenous communities, people that been in the place, they are in the place, and they are the owner of the place, the people that they're authorized storytellers. We need to remember that inclusion also means inclusion of narratives, of others' narrative. Because we know the danger of a single narrative. If you haven't assisted this TED Talks, please do take a screenshot, take a picture of this, and Google it. It's on YouTube, free. This is a phenomenal speech from this fantastic storyteller. So the single story, when we have one story, this is dangerous. And often in tourism, we have the iceberg. We have what the tourists see. These stories that are over there, but we know there are a lot of other stories, the hidden story, the untold stories, the forgotten stories. And these are the stories that community have and own. And sometimes they've forgotten. They lost their own connection with the place, but most of the time, and in some continents stronger than others, especially Africa, but also Asia, some countries more than others, I would say India, Nepal. They're more related, they're more strong, they're still a stronger root. So good stories, remember, this is another important thing, that good story they entertain, make people feel good, they inform, they educate, they share knowledge. So they engage, as we say before. But I think there is something important about community storytelling that empower. And I see this by experience. I've seen this by sharing their own stories. And this is what I do. I get to the community and I ask them to share their own stories, to bring them to the tourists, to invite them to experience them through the process of sharing their own stories. Empower the storyteller. This is what actually important. Community storytelling also creates new economic opportunities at the destination level. And this means more organic product introduced in the supply chain, more information about biodiversity and cultural tradition. Some uses are, I'm sharing this, I can share this with you later. There are stories about, local stories about the place, about the culture, about the biodiversity, about the cultural tradition, the past, the present, and the future, because they're all connected. So through community storytelling, I can introduce the supply chain and the local partners. I can present my local suppliers who cook the food, who create my the beautiful things that are displayed in the room, for example, in terms about the curtain, the pillow, all the art, the artisan production, but also the food on the table, the people that lead the experience, etc. Also, through the community storytelling, you can tell the story of your company, where it comes from, why it exists. You can expand the traveler's perspective about the destination. So it's about, the Maldives is not just about isolated, deserted atolls. There are people there. They live there, they're fishermen, they're artisan, they've been living there for a long time, and they are more than the resorts that we think they are. So there is more to a place than the image that we sometimes we share. So that's why community storytelling can bring more, can educate about the culture, can bring more layers to the different cultures that are in each destination. Is a missing piece of a puzzle, in my opinion. So here, quickly, some general benefit about community storytelling is, I think, and I proved it, that empowers local storytellers, reveal the important hidden stories, connects deeper to people and places, support local sustainable development, inspire the younger generation. So this is an open question to you. What might community storytelling look like in your destination? If you haven't thought about that before, reconnect with the story of a place through the people that live in the place and see what stories you can share. Welcome new narratives and innovate. Ethical marketing is a consequence of this, knowing that marketing is a way of creating and delivering value-based arguments of the offering, what kind of a value that actually I'm sharing. This is something, this resource that I share with the CBI website. I can share this with you later. The participants, no problem, some tips for ethical marketing through community storytelling, which is, yes, becoming the proud storyteller of your community. Keep the perspective, your perspective at the center. Share what seems obvious and normal to you. Share the impact of the community-based tourism project in terms of sustainable development. Make public only what you feel comfortable to share, because I always say this to the community when I do the capacity building with them. There are two stories. There are the story that your story that make your identity, and the story that you decide to share with the community. So you don't need to share all the stories, with your tourists. So let's say it's like the story that you'll need to decide to share with your tourists are a small part of the whole story that make you who you are, so your identity. Community storytelling is linked to ethical marketing, because marketing is not just selling product. Making sure that by you sharing the story of your place, the one you choose to, and the value that they represent for your place, the biodiversity, the cultural conservation, all these, make sure that the way you're presenting and market your place is done in an ethical way, because it's respecting the place and the people. And this is also link and educate tourism to be responsible. this is actually the link. Of course, we know sustainable tourism is the way of thinking about the impact at the present and in the future. And responsible tourism is more related to how do people behave in the place. Tourist needs education to become responsible. You weren't born responsible tourist. You become a responsible tourist by knowing the right stories and the knowledge shared by the people. They are the storytellers. So just to finish, I want to share some guidelines about, we talk about storytelling, how to write a good story, how to make a story stick to the brain. So how can we communicate sustainable practices through storytelling? I would say, we remember that we talk about the marketing, and the sustainability journey is part of your branding, because this is who you are, what you do. So it's important to share that, but how do you share it? And this is remembering that storytelling is a tool. We can use it in this case to share what you stand for and what you're doing. Now, make sure, these are kind of a general guidelines, but are very important if you reflect on what actually that means. So share the facts, not promises. Share what you've been doing, what you are actually doing in the most tangible way you can. So applying all the technique and skills of storytelling. So share facts in a tangible way, showing what you're doing, basically. Sharing the story of the people involved. So maybe, probably, like as I said before, who are the protagonists? Who are the people behind the story? This is the way, a very good place to show people who is involved. Is it you and your staff that come from from Europe, working in Kenya? Oh no, actually, the people I employ are 95% local. So these are the people. This is an impact. This is important to say. It's showing that actually you are practicing sustainable development. You're putting into practice, but you're showing it through the people that are part of your story. Another important thing that I suggest you to do is sharing the meaning of what you're doing. So what this means, what is the value of your experience, of your work? What is the impact? The value for the people that live there, the value for the environment. So what the impact? Talking about sustainability, we know that sustainability have different dimensions. When we talk about impact, we're talking about the social impact. So at women, empowerment is something, and gender equality, something that is supported to what you do. So the environment is protected, conserved, enhanced, and regenerated. Is the culture tradition preserved, nourished? Is the economic benefit only for few people or for the majority of the place? So when you share the impact and the value, be factual and consider all the elements of sustainable tourism. I want to open to Q&A. I want also to, there are a couple of best practices I want to share. Time is really tight actually, but here I can share this on the recording. If you like, I can share the PDF with you. So this is one example, and please look up for the regional, the marketing campaign of Indigenous Tourism Association of Africa. They are phenomenal. This campaign is fantastic, and it uses irony to highlight the uniqueness of what actually they offer. So what is actually 5-star experience? Is actually being in a resort, or is actually having access to the pure environment, etc. So I found this campaign phenomenal. So I wanted just to remind you that storytelling is an art, so we need to learn to practice it, but it also is very powerful and can help us to preserve the heritage, educate future generation, and also inspire change. These are not my words, but I totally agree. So I brought this point for you. I hope that you have some takeaways for today, and this is me on the ground working with community and the future local storytellers. This was my last trip to India, where I trained community from different, many communities from indigenous and rural communities for a month. This is the presentation on my services, what I do. Please, you can scan it here to have a look at it and download it. Also, a special offer, I wanted to offer this as an opportunity for all the participants. You can have a 20% discount for a session on community storytelling clinic with me, a one-to-one for an hour, talking about brand awareness, talking about marketing strategy consulting, and these apply to you as a tour guide, as a solopreneur, or as a small company, and of course a community-based tourism company. Thank you very much. This is me, and I open the floor if there are any questions. Come back to the Q&A sign. And sorry, Michael, time is really running out, but I'm happy to share, to answer some questions if there are any, unless I can bring something from the registration.
Elisa, there are a few questions and Michael is posting them. If you could just look at them.
Fantastic. Oh yeah, good. Okay.
Storytelling and AI and travel writing, what's the difference? What does it mean?
Fantastic. Yes, I've seen that. I've seen this one. Yes, great. So AI, okay, good. I am not at all scared, I would say, about AI because AI is a tool. It works very well as a prompt, but if you don't ask the right question, they won't answer. And remember, AI is only built on information that already exists. So I believe that content creation, it comes from the creativity of human brain and human experience. So AI is a kind of, at this stage, is combining the knowledge that's been shared and produced so far and recreating, re-sharing it and recombining it. So you can use AI as a prompt, yes, great, but don't rely on it because you want to be original. You want to create your, you want to rely on your own creativity. So you want to be unique. So AI is a great tool, but I don't feel threatened by it at all. How to influence and cooperate with communities with limited informal education. Okay, right. I've seen this message in the registration. So if you think about you want to work with community, okay, that's fantastic. Think about community as your audience. We talked about this before, right? The community, imagine they are your audience. So how would you communicate? How do you communicate to them what you want to do? So you have to find a way to bring them into the conversation. Is your responsibility that the community understand how do you want to work with them. And when they decide, you can sit and discuss, but they are your audience at this stage. So make sure that the level of education that they might not have a formal education, this doesn't matter. What it matters is that you find a way to deliver your message to them. And this is an application of a storytelling for you, even before drafting the stories for your audience, for your travelers. The community is your reference at this point. So how would you communicate so that I understand what you want to do and how do you want to work with them, so they can decide if they want to. So what is the other one? How to innovatively communicate sustainable practices using storytelling. Well, again, this is a very general question. I try to bring some ideas here. So you have to think, first of all, start from the fact that sustainability is not one thing. So sustainability has different dimensions, okay? What actually I'm talking about, talking about sustainability, what aspect, what dimension of sustainability I want to communicate, right? Make it concrete, bring example, make it factual, show, don't tell, right? Storytelling provide you the tools and the skills to make sure that what you're doing is translated in practical terms that are reaching your audience because you bring them the picture of your impact. How can storytelling help with fundraising, even for community impact? Well, fundraising is based on storytelling as well. So
I'm in a webinar. Let me finish this in 10 minutes. I call you back.
So when you talk about fundraising, right, you have to ask yourself what I'm achieving, what I want to achieve, who I'm talking to. Okay, achieving, in this case, will be raising funds. Great. In fundraising, is really extremely important to understand who is your audience. So who are you talking to? Meaning what they know about the context you're talking about. You can increase their knowledge. You can bring the importance of what they message or their money will do. So you can first fill the gap of their knowledge. So knowing the audience, fill the gap of the knowledge, understand the stereotypes and play with it. So show them that the stereotypes are wrong. They're based on the wrong assumption. Share them. Third things you can do is share in practical way. So paint them the future image. So imagine you start the story and storytelling in fundraising dinner, describing what is gonna happen. So you don't tell them there's a future, but you're describing the future scenery. So you bring them in the future, which is an appealing future, right? What they want, and you can tell that, right, this is what you can do to help that, to make it real. So basically, fundraising, in fundraising, your storytelling skills will be very tested. But if you start from the audience, you are already winning, because you are molding your message on what they know, what they expect, how they want to contribute. Any other question here? I know time is running out, but I'm happy to answer a couple of more. How do we tell community success or progress stories without attracting sympathy, but solely for change, transformation, and dignity in a manner that fosters community integration or responsible tourism discourse? Mercy, thank you very much. I think, Mercy, I think we met in Rwanda, didn't we? Anyway, so good to see you here. So again, if you are, in this case, you're putting that your purpose, your goal is not attracting sympathy. Your goal is change, transformation. So you want to, who is the actor of this transformation, right? Who are you talking to? Because still the audience, you have to have an audience. Are you talking about the new generation? Are you talking about them to be engaged with the story of their ancestors, with their identity? Because like in Nepal, they're flying and they live in the country, and the country will end up having no young people anymore. So are you talking to them? You're making sure that they know the importance of responsible tourism. Who are you talking to? It's not because the marketing is not about selling things for the money or for have the please of the approval of others. It's to reach a goal. The storytelling should be directed to a specific goal. Is my goal to make sure that my stories are passed on? This is what I have to focus. Who I'm telling the stories, who I'm trying to engage in the conversation. So purpose and audience, I continue mentioning, this is what will structure your message. And I hope, Mercy, that I answer your question. Happy to continue this conversation after offline. Anyone, lastly, what are some of the common challenges that you face personally in your drive for storytelling sustainable tourism? Myself, oh my God, thank you for the question, Michael. This is a huge answer. But right, I want to share a challenge that actually I had in Uganda. First time I went to East Africa 2 years ago. So my challenge was that I couldn't see any cultural story shared on a website of a local tour operator that we're talking to. And I asked them, guys, why? Don't you have a culture here that you can share this on your website? And they say no, because tourism wants safari. So that's what we share. So the challenge for me sometimes is holding the mirror back to the community and say, look, this is you, your identity, your cultural identity. I mean, your identity is based on the culture. And so the story that you tell should reflect in the first place who you are. So don't deny yourself to share the root of your identity. This is what actually you should start with. So my challenges is the challenges in general with the tourism industry, when I had to share that one country is not one image. One country is has a different layers, different images, and different cultures. So a culture, the country is diverse, the country is multiple, the narratives are always plural. So this is the challenges that are making people realize that culture is not something fixed, is not something that is unique. Is unique, but is not one, and within the same country, starting with. So challenges are many, but I'm very motivated because every time that I see a new community storyteller born and sharing their own stories, I feel that this story can change perceptions, and this is what I'm doing. So stories can change perception, story can broaden our minds and can make a stronger impact in our industry. So please share the story, learn to share your story in a more impactful way, so more people will listen and will connect. And yes, I stop sharing now. I'm not sure I answered all the questions, but I tried. I hope it was helpful.
You have done exceptionally well this morning. I think the audience that we have this morning will attest that this has been a very enlightening session for all of us. We now understand the basics of storytelling, the skills behind it, what is general storytelling versus community storytelling. We know how to tell stories around sustainability, things around ethical marketing, how to communicate sustainable tourism practices through storytelling, how to make sure that the voice in storytelling remains the voice of the community. I think that is very important. And that's why you have spoken about purpose. What is a purpose and who's your audience? And that will guide you. I think Mercy's question was a little bit of concern about what emerges when people think about telling community stories. We think about stories of poverty and deprivation, which is the stories that have come out of our communities, which are the stereotypes. And we think about it's something that I don't like talking about in tourism, but we have a lot of poverty pornography happening in tourism storytelling. There are many influential people who go to places and say that they're telling stories of place, but what they're peddling is poverty pornography, which means they want to look in all these things, they put themselves in the center of the storytelling as the saviors of the people that they have been or the places that they have visited. So it's important, even in storytelling, like you say, what is your position? If you're taking the place like you have taken, at least of telling the story on behalf of the community, you must not forget who is at the center of the story. And I liked your point about let's put on new lenses. In community development, we talk about removing your yellow lenses. Take off your yellow glasses, because when you wear yellow glasses, everything looks yellow, right? And so you might look at everything and they will all look yellow. So in community development, we say remove your yellow lenses, and you will see clearly what the situation, that all situations are not the same, all contexts are not the same, and they are very different. We have learned that we are the ones, those of us who are here today, and I'm now challenging us, that we must be the ones that break the cycle of sanitized marketing and communication in tourism. This cycle must be broken, and real empowering stories of places must be told. You said something very important. I think you said something about what storytelling does. I have taken so many notes that I have to look around and see what is it. You said good stories. Yeah, they don't just entertain, they engage, but they also empower. And I think that is very powerful. In the tourism industry, we have sought to entertain the visitor, but we have not sought to empower them and to engage them, right? In ways that will create even new economic opportunities. I didn't think about it this way, but the way you said storytelling can create new economic opportunities for the communities, right? When we give them the voice to tell their own story. I could summarize your presentation in many interesting ways, but it's been very encouraging, very inspiring, very informative. But I also want us to know that as we go out there, and based on Michael's last question, like, what are the challenges that you face in this? Yes, there are challenges. Why? Because tourism has got strong entrenched interests, right? We've got strongholds in the tourism industry, right? And because of these strongholds, yeah, communication in tourism has been captured by those who have power and might. They drive the narratives because they have the space, they have the mic all the time, because they have the power, the economic power behind that mic to influence what goes out. So there is elite capture in tourism communication, and it communicates what it has sanitized and what it wants to go there. But we must stand up and be strong enough and begin to communicate differently. We must break this cycle, use the spaces that we have, like this webinar today. We are using this space to say there's another narrative. There's an alternative narrative that we can bring forth concerning our communities and our destinations. Remember that tourism communication remains a contested space, and whoever has the power and the might and holds the mic will have the narrative of the day. But thank God for spaces like this today that we can bring forth alternative narratives. So let us be the storytellers. Let us empower our communities to tell their stories of place. Let us change our perspectives. Those of us who are here, one person at a time, as we have to go, as we go forward, so that new narratives of places will begin to emerge. New empowering narratives will begin to emerge, and the communities will find their voice. And communities will not be bystanders. Our communities will not be beneficiaries of systems that have been created in other places, processes and systems, but they will be true architects of their own stories and places. They will be the architects of what they want to be said about their places. This is the voice that we must give to our communities if community tourism is going to make a difference. You and I are sitting here today knowing very well that there is no global statistic in the tourism industry by the big organizations that collect data. They don't collect data on the value of the assets that are owned by tourism, including the value of the cultural assets that are owned by communities. Where are they in the global valuation of the tourism industry? That is their contribution. Where is the valuation of the spaces that have been preserved by indigenous knowledge of the communities? They have not been valued. We've got rainforests, we've got places, savannas and all that with big value, but that value is not documented in the mega data that we have. Why? Because storytelling, the stories around tourism and what matters in tourism has been captured and by the voices that want us to only look at the economic stories around tourism and not other stories. I'm not starting a new webinar altogether, but I'm inspired this morning. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Fantastic.
And it's valuable to all of you. We'll have this posted on our social media pages. The link will be on our YouTube page, and you can direct people to listen to it. Thank you, everyone, and bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we do a screenshot, please, before you leave, if you are able to?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, if you are able to turn on your video. In gallery view, I will do a screenshot. If you are able to, everyone, even as we end, we can do a screenshot, please. Thank you, Phoebe, for coming. Thank you, Mercy. Yeah.
Hi, Phoebe.
Waiting
Good
for
to
you
see
to turn on your video.
People, Brian, thanks to see some people who came from STARS and new people. Thanks, Melly, for joining us. Cisco, I have seen you here from the beginning. I appreciate you, sister. And all of you who have joined us for the first time today, allow us to add you to our databases so that you can join our other conversations. As you have had, we have conversations and very meaningful conversations in our webinars. Look out for the next webinar. Go out and be the voice that begins to break the cycle of sanitized tourism storytelling. Bye for now.
One important thing also, I left a link to the feedback form. Please take a few minutes to fill it. For me, it's important also to show that these kind of conversations are important, and actually, I would like to hear also to improve for the next one. But please share, is like only a few minutes. For me, it's really important. Thank you. I left it in the chat as well. And thank you very much for the space. Thank Judy for the brilliant sum up. And I'm happy that this inspired more conversation. And I hope that even an audience as well, this thought brought some sparkles and some excitement. So inspiring changes, that's what we're here to do. So thank you very much again for the space. STTA, Michael, Dominic, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa, we couldn't thank you more. And yes, we'll give you a few minutes to go to the link and fill in the feedback form. And when it is done, Michael will then end the meeting. I have to go into another call, so I appreciate you and I look forward to seeing you in the next webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Elisa.
Thanks.